for the hardest-hitting show in talk radio. The true progressive voice since 2012. This is Southpaws.
And welcome to Southpaws on the Pacifica Radio Network. We are the leaders of the revolution. I'm Darren Gibson.
And I'm Jack Prince.
We've got quite a few stories to talk about. We have a very lengthy Hammer Time segment this week. 4 winners. One of them is a group award, so that'll be real interesting.
Yeah.
We got to talk about a story that popped up on NBC News on Wednesday night about something we've talked about on this show for a number of years, and that is the Indigenous boarding schools. Basically, they're re-education schools for Native Americans that were operated by the Roman Catholic Church and the Baptists for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
So NBC finally jumping on board this. So interesting stuff. And I've got a gruesome OSHA story that is just absolutely horrible. Plus, we're going to talk a little election stuff as well. Before we get to today's topics, a couple of reminders that you can follow us on social media by going to facebook.com/Southpaws Radio Show. You can follow us on Twitter at Southpaws Radio. You can follow us on Tumblr at southpawsradioshow.tumblr.com. You can follow us on YouTube by doing a search for Southpaws Radio, and you can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/Southpaws Radio. You can listen to the show anytime at Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Podcast Addict, Podvine, and Pandora by doing a search for Southpaws. Once you found our logo, you found us. We send links to our weekly episodes to our Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and YouTube accounts. You can listen to us on Global Community Radio Channel 1 every Saturday night at 11 Eastern, and you can listen to us on great Pacifica stations including KCEI in Taos, New Mexico, KZGM in Kabul, Missouri, and KEPJ in San Antonio, Texas. So be sure to listen on your local Pacifica station. Jack, I want to get to some election stuff that I missed last week. I ran out of time last week.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to go over some of the Michigan results for governor, secretary of state, and attorney general. Now, why am I going over this? Well, it's because of the margin between those 3 races. One race had a slimmer margin than the other 2. You want to guess which one?
I'm going to say that would be Dana Nessel.
You got it. So let's go by the numbers here because we love numbers around this show. For the governor's race, Gretchen Whitmer, the Democrat, received 54.5% of the vote. Tudor Dixon, the Republican, received 43.9% of the vote. Mary Buzema from the Libertarian Party received 0.9% of the vote. And various other candidates received 0.7% of the vote. So, going to the Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, the Democrat, won 55.9% of the vote. She actually got more votes than Gretchen Whitmer did.
Yeah.
Which I find kind of surprising.
Well, she got those lines out of the way at the Secretary of State's office.
Yes, she did.
She said she would, and she pulled it off. Yeah.
Yes, she did. I will say one of the best Secretary of States that Michigan has seen, I would dare say, since the late, great Richard H. Austin, if you remember him.
It certainly wasn't Miss Lamb.
No.
Kaylin Lamb. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Benson's Republican opponent, Christina Caramo, who is absolutely out of her mind. She's a conspiracy theorist. Look up her... it's awful.
It is.
She received 41.9% of the vote. So I think a lot of Republicans just said, I can't vote for her. She's way too crazy.
That's crazy.
And I'll just say it. I think there could have been some racism in that one.
Yeah, but we live in a time period where people tend to overlook that based on policy. But her policies were claiming that abortion was witchcraft.
Yeah,
the worst
exactly.
kind of witchcraft. And she just looked nuts, talked nuts, and in this day and age, we have crazy things. What was Herschel talking about today between the vampires and the werewolves? He wanted to be a werewolf because werewolves could kill vampires. I'm going, wait a minute.
Somebody's
punchline.
Somebody's been watching too many reruns of the Twilight movie series.
I don't know.
Something. I don't know.
And helmets have improved a lot since the days that Herschel played.
That's very true.
But I don't think you can even blame that on a helmet problem.
No. Let me get to the other candidates here. Gregory Stempfel for the Libertarian Party received 1.2% of the vote, and various other candidates received 1% of the vote. So let's go to the Attorney General race. Dana Nessel, 53.2%, over a full percentage point behind what Gretchen Whitmer did.
Mm-hmm.
Full 2 points, almost 3 full points behind Jocelyn Benson. Matt DePerno, her Republican opponent, received 44.5% of the vote, which actually is a little bit better than what Tudor Dixon or Christina Caramo did. Joseph McHugh of the Libertarian Party received 1.5% of the vote. Other candidates, 0.7%. Dana Nessel received 2,328,873 votes. Gretchen Whitmer got just under 100,000 more votes.
Mm-hmm.
Jocelyn Benson over 100,000 more votes. Almost 150,000 more. You know what I blame this on, Jack? And I'll be the first one to say it right here. This is homophobia run amok by Democrats. And if you think, oh, Democrats aren't homophobic, let me just tell you that I worked with some. Jack, you and I both worked with at least one that I know of personally at the radio station in Kentwood.
Yeah, the line is crossed in many ways. But with Benson, I think besides that homophobic card, I don't think Republicans like a strong woman that talks tough and does tough. Where, Whitmer and even with Dana, attractive women, and they kind of temper down that I'm in charge persona. I just think Dana rubbed someone the wrong way and rubbed the wrong people, if you know what I'm saying. But we had her in our store, our shop, and she was on our show.
Yeah.
So she's fantastic. She's great. And the three of them are going to get more done than the last decade. So
exactly.
Go get them. Yeah.
Exactly. I just want to take this moment to call out any of the homophobes in the Democratic Party. If that's the way you want to be, go vote Republican. Go join the party. Go do whatever you feel you need to do. It's either time to change or get out.
Yeah, I agree completely on that.
And that's the same with the pro-lifers in the Democratic Party. Change or go. Those are your options. You have no other options. Change or go.
Yep.
I'm sick of this, and I'm going to harp on it. I'm going to harp on it every time I see friends of mine that want to say, oh, but we need that big tent. No, we don't. We absolutely do not. You want to know what happens when you run on policy? You win. I think Democrats finally figured that out after 2016. You can't just point at them and say, well, we're better than the other guys. Yeah, that didn't work.
They stood their ground, too, Darren.
Yeah.
Because after a few months of maintaining that the abortion issue was going to rally the female troops, all we heard was, oh, nobody cares about that. And all the pollsters, nobody cares about the abortion anymore. It's the inflation. It's the economy. You can't buy cookies at the store and yada, yada. The truth is the real issue never got pushed under the rug, and that was the denial and the abstraction of female rights the voters responded, and it did not wane. So, as you said, you stand on a right issue, and you don't get off it, regardless of the contradiction that'll come from the right. Maintaining it's insignificant, doesn't matter. It does matter. And the other issue that really is sterling to me was the democracy cry. Mm-hmm. That these deniers, these people who have embraced the lie, Trump's lie, thinking that was going to fly them into an election, they all fell. They all fell. All of the deniers were denied. So you take those two issues, the abortion and the repetitive lie that Trump spewed and fed so many right-wing nuts, those two issues won the day.
And speaking of old Trumpty Dumpty, by the way, did you see that cover of the New York Post last week? Wasn't that beautiful?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, then in the day after he announced his president run, his rerun, they had a little tiny line down in the front page. Florida man makes announcement on purpose. Oh, you should have seen it. It was maybe a half-inch high.
Wow.
Didn't even say his name. Yeah.
Well, I think Rupert Murdoch has finally woken up to the fact that he's been sold a bill of goods, and he doesn't like it very much.
No, it does not. All the big donors now are drying up, too.
Yeah, this is great. This is good news. Here's my problem, though. I have a feeling a lot of those folks are going to go over to Ron death sentence, and he's worse than Trump, my opinion.
He may be. Yeah, he may be.
Because he's savvy, and he's a lot more, he speaks a lot more, he's not smooth. As rough. He's smooth, yeah. And he comes from a big state, a state that the Republicans have to win, and he gets Hispanic votes. He's got a lot going for him. We'll see what happens. I mean, Trump may offer him the vice president. I don't think DeSantis would take it. But let's not say that Trump will lose because he's lost so many times before. Let's say that it might be a little easier to beat him this time, but you have to beat him. You just don't sit back and let your assumption win the day, because it won't. I'm going to throw this one at you, Jack. I was talking with a radio friend of mine who also does a political podcast, and he said that he believes that Donald Trump, and he has had personal dealings with Donald Trump, said that he doesn't think the death sentence will run because Donald Trump has some sort of dirt on him. You think that is a possibility? It's possible. There's so much slime and dirt in the corners, you're liable to run into it anywhere. I was kind of hoping that Liz Cheney would run and would take votes from whatever conservative, if she runs as an independent. A lot of conservative voters would say, hey, wait a minute, there's an old-fashioned real conservative. I'm going to vote for her as an independent. Yeah.
So it's a long ways off. A lot of things can happen, but what you just maintained is very, very feasible.
Let me throw this one at you then, since you mentioned Liz Cheney. Let's say that Joe Biden runs for re-election, which he at this point said he is going to run again, or at least that's what he said. I think he's kind of backed off a little bit and said, we'll see by next year, I think is what he recently said. Let's say, doesn't really matter which Republican gets it, whether it's Trump, whether it's Ron DeSantis, it doesn't really matter. Let's say Liz Cheney runs as an independent. You think Bernie Sanders might run as an independent as well? Could he win that way?
He'd have more of a chance than Liz. But the thing is, if both of these very, very strong independents ran, it would help each other because it would produce kind of an air of revolt. Where you're going to have two 80-year-old guys, one that's got all kinds of legal charges and one insurrection under his belt, been impeached twice. Only president since I think it was Hoover to lose the presidency, the House, and the Senate. That's a lot to overcome. So they might say if there's ever time to get out of the partisan vote, this would be it. So, yeah, it could be an independent atmosphere, if you will, and that would make it conducive for Bernie. You talk about a backdoor entrance after what we went through pushing for him. Hey, that'd be a strange way to do it. We sure would take it. I have a hunch that Biden is not going to run unless Trump starts to really make hay and gets some synergy, which he doesn't have now. I think Biden would say, I'm the Trump killer. If I have to, I'll run. I don't want to. I'd rather somebody else take the mantle, but I'll go to beat Trump. Trump is the catalyst for Biden in the future.
Yeah, and there's already rumblings in the House of Representatives that once the Republicans take over, they're going to start investigating Hunter Biden and, for that matter, President Biden.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're even talking about having impeachment hearings against Biden.
Who's on the bench, Democratic bench, regardless of Bernie, besides Bernie, who may run as an independent? He's not going to go through primary system or season. Who were we even looking at? The California governor?
That's a possibility, but I doubt it. Gretchen Whitmer's already said she's not even interested in running for president.
That's 8 days after the election. I wonder if 6 months from now, if that might change. You know, she's good for a word, I'm sure, but I think she'd be an excellent candidate, just a dynamite candidate.
I keep pushing AOC because she will be 35 by Election Day 2024, so she would qualify.
Yeah, but I think the establishment would really fight against her. I mean, I'm sure they would.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Probably more against her than they did Bernie. I think they'd amp it up even higher.
Yeah, I do too. But she'd be a dynamite vice president or somebody. I don't know. Those names have been tossed around. That's undecided. What we really care about is the Trump possibility of winning. That's the stake in the heart of democracy. I haven't been so buoyant since before his election, 2016. And being with you on the night when he won that, we both drove home in shock at 3 o'clock in the morning from the radio station.
Exactly, at 3 in the morning.
Yeah. And I suddenly took that out of my heart, that stake that had been there that long, because I think he's crashed. It'd take a while for him to burn, but he's already crashed.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. Oh, man. It'll be interesting to see. That's all I got to say. It'll be really interesting.
Yes, it's going to be quite a race, yeah.
Yeah. Well, something else that we should talk about is something that we have been reporting on for at least the last 2 or 3 years now.
Yeah.
And that is these schools, these boarding schools, re-education camps is what I call them, because that's pretty much what they were, where the Roman Catholics and the Baptists would grab Indigenous children, Native American children, take them away from their parents, and re-educate them to learn English, dress like the white man, act like the white man, basically eliminate their cultures. We've been, up until recently, the only outlet that discusses this on a regular basis, possible exception Democracy Now! Because I haven't listened to Amy Goodman in quite a while, because she doesn't play in this town anymore.
Oh, no, she should.
Yeah.
But we went back, I don't know how many years, when I was running clothes and goods out to the reservation in South Dakota, Pine Ridge Reservation. And we talked about the abject poverty there in the Pine Ridge Reservation, and the malnutrition and the arrest record. And then we also mentioned the fact that there was these industrial schools. Jim Thorpe attended one in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. And they took their name away. They took their culture away. They beat them if they spoke in their own language. Last night on NBC, there were interviews with 65-year-old men that were saying, yes, the priest used to come down and pick us up out of the dormitory. He was mentioning sexual abuse on NBC. And I'm thinking, man, oh, man, we have gone a long way since we broke the story. And when I say we broke the story, I don't remember hearing it anyplace else. I read things, but it was certainly not in any mainstream media. And any part of America. You know it. I know it. Your ear is closer to those things even than mine. It wasn't there.
I never heard Jimmy Dore talk about it.
No.
Quite truthfully, I haven't heard Tom Hartman talk about it. At least not at the same time that we were.
No, this was years ago.
Yeah.
And we had mentioned that there were schools in Michigan, one of them Mount Pleasant.
Yeah, Michigan
And
had
3
at
years
least
later,
3 or 4 schools, right? Maybe more?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's a number of them that were in Michigan, and we had it down. We talked about the fact they didn't win scholarships. They were kidnapped from their parents, and there was a rule that it was ideal if they could be over 1,500 miles away from their home to make sure they really couldn't reunite with their family.
Exactly.
How draconian it really was. We really hit it on the head. It's almost inconceivable to think we lit the match, but I don't know. Maybe somebody heard us and did some reading, and away it went. Because now it's an issue. Now the United States uncomfortably has to look at itself and say, my God, we really had concentration camps. The NBC very mainstream pundit last night said, this really, how can you call this anything but genocide?
Yeah, Ann Thompson asking
genocide.
The head of the Indian Bureau,
right?
How can you not call this genocide? And the guy's a Native American himself.
Right.
And he's not calling it genocide. I mean...
No, I sat up and I said, that's amazing. That is so progressive. You know, even some of the Native American Indians, Native American population right here in Grand Rapids, I challenged when they had a commemoration down at the river by the mounds, the sacred mounds, and that particular tribe was celebrating a treaty that was signed. I said, wait a minute, hold it. The treaty that was signed, that's when you ceded all your properties in Michigan. And I tried to get this guy and say, hey, you might give the white man his rights for a gambling casino, but don't celebrate their genocide, for crying out loud. And he wouldn't talk with me. I went to the tribe headquarters, tried to track this guy down. Jeff Smith knew about it, and I shouldn't mention names on the air, but I never got a hold of the guy. He wouldn't talk with me. He knew I was after him, too. This is a spot close to my heart. My sister worked for years on the reservation. She was a registered nurse, and she had a medical clinic for years with 2 or 3 tribes, Apaches, and then became a leading lawyer for them in New Mexico. Mm-hmm. That's when I was a little boy. She's older than me. So and then somebody handed me Bury My Heart, Wounded Knee, which I taught for years in a Grand Rapids public school system. So this issue goes way back in my heart.
Yes, it does. You know, in the town of Grand Rapids, there's 3 people, 4 actually, you don't want to see coming toward you. Henry Erb tops the list. If Henry Erb's coming your way, you're going to be on television for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
If you're rich and white in this town, you don't want to see Jeff Smith coming toward you because he's going to make you feel really uncomfortable. And then he's going to write about it in Grid, which we highly recommend that you read, GRIID.org.
And even more incredible, because of the inspiration that Jeff Smith received by reading Howard Zinn's account called A People's History of the United States, a classic that Matt Damon said it's the only effing book you need to read. Mm-hmm. And he's absolutely right. That now has a sequel in that Jeff Smith has written a book called A People's History of Grand Rapids, Michigan, that comes out in March. And I've read it and reviewed it. It's incredible. It's fantastic. So you see Jeff Smith coming, you may make the print someday. Be careful what you're doing. And that's the kind of being held to an account that's missing. Jeff Smith's book is an antidote to the amnesia that America suffers. United States of amnesia. We forget how we got here. We forget the characters that got us here, the acts and the legislation, but not Jeff Smith. He's got it embodied in a book, again, called The People's History of Grand Rapids. I can't wait to get the physical copy.
Yeah, me too. The third person you don't want to see approaching you if you've got something to hide would be you, Mr. Jack Prince.
Well, I'm getting old. I'm slowing down a lot, but this Native American issue just really. I just sing praise to NBC for carrying this special. It's amazing.
I'm giving you credit because I saw you walk a picket line when Governor Snyder was in town, the stuffed turd, and you had a bottle of brown water. Would you like a drink? I remember that very well.
Yeah, wow. We had a lot of fun in the old days.
Yeah.
But I think we've turned some corners. I think we can celebrate a bit. The battle's not over, but we won a couple the war's not over. We won some battles in the last week.
Yeah, definitely. And the fourth one, I'm going to pat myself on the back because I just really don't care about who I offend. I'm going to get the truth out one way or another. And if I bring people down with it, par for the course. Like I said, I got some Democratic Party officials and I'm going to get even with one day, starting with Tracy Cornack.
Yeah, oh, wow. That's a whole story in itself, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
No, what you're doing is the very thing that's lacking. You're checking these people. You're holding them to expectations. That's the very gas that makes the engine of democracy turn. Mm-hmm. And so we should be grateful. For Darren Gibson, I'm serious. I said that. How many years ago did we meet? 5, 6 years ago?
You started with the show in September 2016.
So, yeah. Wow. 5 years already. 6 years.
6 years now.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem possible.
No, it doesn't. Now, somebody else that needs to be held accountable, or I guess the agency that holds businesses accountable, I'm going to get to this very grisly story. We are going to give you the warning right now. You probably might want to turn the radio off if you have young ears around, because this is one of the worst work hazard stories resulting in death that I have ever heard. This comes to us from John Hayworth at ABC News. This is dated November 16th. Final warning, if you have young ears or you can't handle grisly details about death, you better turn the radio off for the next couple of minutes. One of the world's biggest manufacturers of industrial vehicles and equipment has been cited and penalized for the death of a worker who fell into an 11-foot deep pot of molten iron heated to more than 2,000 degrees this summer. 39-year-old Steve Dirks, an employee and melting specialist at a Caterpillar foundry which produces cast iron engine components in Mapleton, Illinois, was immediately incinerated after falling into the huge tub of molten iron that was heated to approximately twice the temperature of volcanic lava on June 2nd earlier this year. You know how many days he was on the job when he died?
9 days.
9 days.
That's a crime.
It is. In a statement, OSHA said that investigators with the U.S. Department of Labor's Occupational Safety and Health Administration determined the foundry routinely exposed employees to unprotected fall hazards as they worked within 4 feet of deep ceramic containers of superheated molten iron. If required safety guards or fall protection had been installed, the 39-year-old employee's 9th day on the job might not have been their last. That is a direct quote from OSHA. Caterpillar, a Fortune 500 corporation and construction equipment manufacturer, was cited for one willful violation. You know what they were fined by OSHA? $145,027. That's all.
Piece of cake.
OSHA Regional Administrator Bill Donovan out of the Chicago office said, quote, "A worker's life could have been spared if Caterpillar had made sure required safety protections were in place, a fact that only adds to this tragedy. Producing more than 150,000 tons each year, Caterpillar's foundry is one of the nation's largest, and they should be acutely aware of industry regulations to protect workers using smelters and other dangerous equipment." End of quote. I had no idea that they produced that much iron.
Yeah, that's quite a bit.
Yeah. I figured it'd be someplace like U.S. Steel or something. but wow. Federal safety regulators require employers to install guardrails and restraint systems to protect workers from falls into dangerous equipment like Dirks suffered. OSHA Area Director Christine Zortman in Peoria, Illinois, said, quote, Caterpillar's failure to meet its legal responsibilities to ensure the safety and health of workers leaves this worker's family, friends, and co-workers to grieve needlessly. We implore employers to review the agency's specific regulations to protect workers from falls into equipment in industrial settings. End of quote. More than 800 people are employed at the Caterpillar Foundry in Mapleton, Illinois, and the foundry manufactures engine components used for construction and mining equipment, off-highway diesel and natural gas engines, industrial gas turbines, and diesel-electric locomotives, and that is also according to OSHA. Caterpillar has 15 business days from the time of OSHA's citation to either comply, request an informal conference with OSHA's area director to discuss the matter further, or contest the findings and citation in front of the Independent Occupational Safety and Health Review Commission. What do you think they're going to do? You think they're going to try and get out of paying $145,000?
Yeah, I do.
That's kind of a no-brainer, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the way they roll.
The thing
but,
there,
this is so macabre, That's like instant vaporization. He turned to just a puff of steam in a couple seconds.
Pretty much.
Imagine the family, imagine looking at that reality. Terrible.
Yeah. Imagine getting a call from authorities. The cops show up to your house. Hey, your family member was killed in an industrial accident at Caterpillar. Well, when can we claim the body? There is no body. It got vaporized in molten steel.
And this is not even an issue that people really are aware of. The progressives, thanks to the progressives, have brought some workplace safety, and OSHA was instrumental in that. But if you go back to the 30s, there was a leading progressive that wrote a book called The Jungle that traced the absolute indecent safety conditions in Chicago plants and the meatpacking industry. I mean, it was unbelievable. I had my senior journalism students read that book, particularly where on Friday they would clean all of the machines and spray them all down, and they had a system in the factories that all of the bits and pieces of meat that accumulated during the week would all go down like a sewer system down to the bottom. They cleaned the factory once a week, and that accumulation of meat parts a week old, that's what they made into deviled ham. And I took a can of deviled ham to the classroom. I said, anybody want to make, some crackers and deviled ham? I got some here, because it will gag you to read the conditions, the work conditions, and the uncleanliness in that factory. And it's thank goodness to progressives that brought light in and changed that situation. But much remains. And because of deregulation, the unsafe conditions have returned to the workplace to a great measure.
Deregulation, consolidation in the industries. When you've got 3 or 4 companies owning pretty much all of the meat processing facilities in this country, that should be a big red flag. And if the COVID-19 pandemic wasn't enough to raise that red flag, I don't know what will.
Exactly. Example of deregulation right here in the state of Michigan, the amount of state-paid regulators that would go to dairy farms and check conditions of milk. It was cut by 2/3 back when our conservative legislation began to reign in this state. The deregulation that was responsible for the lack of those safety managers on farms were responsible for the chemical spill. You remember that poisoned hundreds of thousands of women when a fire hydrant went into some milk up, I want to say near Reed City someplace.
No, it wasn't. It was in St. Louis, Michigan.
St. Louis. Okay, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, St. Louis, Michigan. It was, I forget the name of the company, but they made a cattle feed that they had in a similar bag to the fire retardant that they manufactured in the same building.
Right.
So the fire retardant got put in those bags. And now...
Yeah, a regulator may have gone through there and said, you can't have that bag that close. But we don't have that regulator. We don't have those regulators anymore. They've been taken off because of the deregulation instilled upon by Reagan.
Yeah, we've talked about the PBB scandal in Michigan before.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah. Somebody that I went to high school with, actually one of our listeners, Wayne in Oklahoma City, his wife is part of a long-term study, or was in the study of PBB, because they ate the cattle on the farm or drank the milk, and she has PBB in her system. So she's been part of a long-term study.
You're damn right. Well, and now we just went through a season where the conservatives' repugnants were just squawking, oh, Biden's bill that's going to take, I don't know how many millions of dollars and hire new IRS agents. We don't need no IRS stinking agents. Well, the white-collar crime and tax evasion is billions of dollars. And they want you to think they're going to come after the poor people and rip them off. No, they were there because of the cutbacks imposed by conservatives that took them out of the IRS. And they'll triple whatever their cost of their salaries will be in retrieving back money for the United States. These companies now may have, do I dare say it, regulation. The two big words that Reagan spewed out were privatization and deregulation. And here we are, how many years later, suffering because of it. Let's turn the tide on that. We've got 3 bodies here of Democrats in this state. It's time to get rid of that penchant for deregulation.
Yep, and there's going to be some other things that Governor Whitmer said that she's going to get rid of now that she has majorities in both houses of the legislature. And the first one's going to be right to work.
Absolutely.
Or as we call it, right to work for a lot less money.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is.
So many draconian pieces of legislation. And there's a little window here on the national level. That's why they're pushing for the same-sex legislation.
Yeah.
Or marriage, excuse me.
Take advantage,
Yeah.
Get it done. Yeah. I think Democrats have finally woken up after Roe versus Wade was overturned that, hey, we better get on board with codifying some of this stuff because it's going to affect them.
I got a hell of an idea.
Yeah.
Why doesn't the MEA say, hey, we got 3 branches of government commensurate with the MEA? I hope they used to be, not trying to be facetious here. Why don't we press to restore the public school system's right to strike?
Exactly.
What might that do for public schools? When the iron's hot, you got to strike.
I know. And that's another good one. Because, quite truthfully, a judge should have struck that law down decades ago. You're violating the First Amendment. It's the government saying you cannot engage in speech, free speech.
Right. I mean, the hole's open. Go for the end zone right now. Go hard. And that'd be a big victory. That would make a big difference.
Yes, it would. And speaking of free speech, Jack, we might as well get into our next segment.
Stop. Hammer time.
Oh, yeah, it's hammer time. It is time to drop the hammer on the douchebag of the week. And we've got 4 winners for you this week. One of them is a group award. We'll get to the group in just a minute here. But winner number 1, I ran out of time last week before I could crown him with this award. Second week in a row for Elon Musk, the chief twit over at Twitter.
Oh, wow.
So why is he getting douchebag of the week? Because he banned Kathy Griffin and Sarah Silverman from Twitter for, should I dare say, mocking him?
Yeah, right.
Unbelievable. So much for your free speech and First Amendment stuff there, Elon. Yeah. First off, the First Amendment doesn't apply to private corporations. Private corporations can do what they want to, which I guess apparently Elon Musk is proving that he's going to do that regardless of what he's told everybody else. He is about like Trump. He's a toddler. He's a baby. He needs his diaper changed and an ass spanking. He does. Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, all these rich people. We'll get into, I'll do a nice little dissertation about people that suck up to the rich. We'll do that later in the segment here. But let's go to winner number 2. Jack, somebody we were never fooled by. Tulsi Gabbard. Oh, good God. I have this story. This is Ross A. Lincoln writing for The Wrap. This is dated November 14th. Tulsi Gabbard, the former Democrat who left the party this year and then endorsed a slate of right-wing extremists running as Republicans in races across the country during the 2022 midterms, has, according to a Los Angeles Times report, signed a contract with Fox Propaganda Channel. Is that a surprise?
Well, we never were surprised. We were digging, when she was running, we were digging stuff up, anti-gay comments she had made. She could fool some of the people, but she couldn't fool all the people all the time. And now she's endorsing some right-wing Republicans I see in the last election. So there she is. That's what she is. That's who she always was.
Exactly. Gabbard, who left the Democratic Party a month ago after declaring it was, quote, now under the complete control of an elitist cabal of warmongers driven by cowardly wokeness, end of quote, will formally begin her contract with Fox Propaganda Channel next week. But as a preview, she guest hosted F***er Carlson tonight on Monday. No, that was not a Freudian slip. That's what I call that dirtbag.
Yeah, you know who might join them? Our real heartthrob from Arizona, Miss Lake. She'd be good. Get her a short skirt, get her on there.
You know, I'm wondering, maybe King Chuck can message me about this when he hears this show. I need to find out if that Fox affiliate in Phoenix that she worked at is a Fox-owned and operated station, or if that's owned by somebody else and they're just an affiliate.
That's a good question. Yeah, they were glad to see her go.
Oh, yeah.
But
she really loved the spotlight.
Oh, yeah.
I think was a direct quote, wasn't it?
Yeah. She's a sociopath, and her hero, Trump, it's all done. It's like, Mrs. Lake, you're done.
Yeah, she lost. She is a loser. Get in, loser. We're going losing.
Is not going to have any legs. It's not going to reemerge. That's the thing. They're not going to resurrect this election fraud. They can't do it. That's not going to come back.
No. Carlson's Fox Propaganda Channel show, which the New York Times dubbed the most racist show in the history of cable news, has a long documented history elevating and promoting white supremacist conspiracy theories such as the Great Replacement, which we've talked about before as well. This idea that all the white people are going to go away. Mm-hmm. You know, I wish they would, especially the rich ones.
As long as I don't see any men playing like they're women and competing, that's what the world pivots on. That was a rather big issue. My God, replacement theory and the sex change giving men unfair advantage in the sports world.
Yeah, it's disgusting. Gabbard goes to Fox Propaganda Channel following the midterms when, among other things, she endorsed and campaigned for 2 failed Arizona Republicans, Senate candidate Blake Masters, who repeatedly insisted Donald Trump won the 2020 election, and gubernatorial hopeful Kari Lake, who, in addition to lying about Trump's 2020 loss, also advocated transphobia during her campaign and suggested she wouldn't accept the results of the election if she lost. Well,
that's what she said.
She's going to have to swallow that one.
I saw it. CNN asked her, what would you do if you lose? Will you accept it? And she said, I'm not going to lose. I'm going to win, and I will accept that. That's all she would say.
Oh, boy. I could say what else she swallows, but that would be non-FCC compliant, so I'll just pass on that.
Yeah, that's... You know, the Fox... The Fox team, I'm predicting, will turn on Trump
They pretty much already have, I think.
Yeah, they can turn hard. Yeah.
Did you see the skit on Saturday Night Live when Fox and Friends told Trump he couldn't be on their show anymore?
Yeah.
And next thing, because they had the dual window up, and next thing you know, their window is pushing Trump's window out of the screen.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
no, it's delicious.
Yeah. Gabbard also endorsed Washington Republican Joe Kent, an election denier who was revealed during the primary earlier this year to have longstanding ties to white supremacists and Holocaust deniers. And she also endorsed failed Nevada U.S. Senate candidate Adam Laxalt, one of the first Republicans to push baseless conspiracy theories in an attempt to overturn the 2020 election.
Yeah.
Representatives from Fox propaganda channel did not immediately respond to a request for comment from the Rap, but the network did confirm her hiring to the Los Angeles Times and to Mediaite. Mediaite does great work in exposing right-wing BS, so you got to follow them. They're great. So winner number 2, Tulsi Gabbard. Winner number 3 is a group award, Jack. Winner number 3, the Cannon Township, Michigan Board of Trustees. I have this story. This is Marissa Oberly writing for WXMI Fox 17. This is dated November 14th. Cannon Township trustees passed a resolution on Monday that expresses what they call official disagreement, indirect quotes, with parts of Proposal 3. That's the proposal that was passed overwhelmingly in Michigan that secures a woman's right to get an abortion in the Michigan state constitution. There is not a thing that they can do about it.
And the 1931 law, the archaic, old-fashioned conservative law, has been eradicated.
Yes,
Lawyers are trying to argue and make some loopholes here and there, but it's not going to go anywhere.
No, it isn't. The vote, which took place at a regular board meeting, passed unanimously, which is why they're all getting douchebag of the week. On Election Day, voters in Michigan approved a constitutional amendment which enshrines a woman's right to reproductive services, including abortion. Steve Grimm, the that's a good name for him. The supervisor for Cannon Township said that while the township is dedicated to and required to follow the law, trustees want to, quote, call attention, end of quote, to a section of the amendment which they say puts the health, safety, and welfare of children in the area at risk. According to a copy of the resolution, Proposal 3 makes it, quote, virtually impossible, end of quote, to enforce or enact laws that prohibit certain sexual activity, including pedophilia, as long as a kid says they consented to it. Which is absolute, total horseshit.
Yep.
They talked to a legal expert. I believe it's a professor with the Cooley Law School that said, no, these arguments that these right-wing, evil, violent, conservative traitor prosecutors are coming up with is total bullshit. And that's unreal. Absolutely unreal. They will stop at nothing and do anything to stop Proposal 3. But it's too late. Way too late.
It's too late. Remember the church down the street from where I live that had wall-to-wall signs to vote no on Proposal 3?
Yeah.
The morning after the election, those signs were gone. And I think they were beginning to, because I called all over the place. And I've never seen any contradiction to the 1954 amendment that said that no religious body can participate in any religious activity.
The Johnson Amendment.
The Johnson Amendment. And when they heard this, when I read it to them on the phone, it was like garlic to a vampire. They were squealing. They were, irate. And then when that bill went down, they took those signs on lickety-split. Mm-hmm. That is a sign, a play on words there, of the cut in the school board hysteria, pushing to fire superintendents and ban books and so forth. The membership of a group called Mothers for Liberty, just a total package of nuts. the membership in 2 days has gone down 50% across the nation. They're all over the place.
Yeah.
The churches got smacked on this. They've responded. It smells great. I'm telling you, we're really pushing, and now's the time to go hard and take these progressive issues and turn things back. Let's get them back.
Yeah. The resolution cites a statement issued by 11 county prosecutors across the state, including Kent County Prosecutor Chris Becker, expressing similar concerns prior to the election. The same Chris Becker, by the way.
Oh, yeah, we know he is.
Who said that he wanted to enforce the 1931 law and he was going to do it because the state's not going to tell him what to do. Well, guess what? The state just told you what to do. The voters just told you what to do.
And you better well do it.
If you can't do it, you need to find another job there, Chris. You really do.
Churches, we repeat, on this show, on the Southpaws show, you are not to indulge in political activity. You're not to support a candidate, and you're not to support any political legislation. That's against the Constitution. It's in conflict in the separation of church and state, which has been a cornerstone of our democracy. Don't do it. Mm-hmm. Damn it. I still get so hot at that.
Oh, I know. I do too. Grimm says trustees hope other municipalities follow suit, bringing clarity to what they see as the broad language of the proposal. Grimm said, quote, "Our goal is to not only voice support for law enforcement, but it's also to get the information out there beyond Cannon Township so that all other communities, if they want to follow this lead, can get the information out that this is a very serious potential confusion in this law that it seems to me needs to be addressed sooner rather than later." End of quote. In the lead up to the election, anti-abortion groups claim Proposal 3 would invalidate numerous laws if passed. Proponents of the constitutional amendment disputed those claims, arguing it would only invalidate an abortion ban passed in 1931. John Clark, a professor of political science at Western Michigan University, said Proposal 3's ultimate impact on state laws will need to be determined by the court or state lawmakers. He notes if the township's resolution passes, it's purely a symbolic move and does not change the constitutional amendment, which, like I've said for the last several weeks, needs a 2/3 vote by both houses of the Michigan legislature to make any changes and have to be signed by the governor, who has already said she would veto anything. Clark said, quote, "Proposal 3 does allow for some clarifying language. In fact, there are certain parts of it that were purposefully written to give the legislature the opportunity to just sort of tinker with the margins, while at the same time protecting the fundamental right of a woman's reproductive health. So there's going to be further conversation, and it's entirely possible that resolutions like this would be part of that. But again, in terms of real impact, this is not something that I would pay a lot of attention to." End of quote. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, hopefully, but there's dumb people out there because there's still people that support Trump. They think JFK Jr. is going to come back from the dead. They really do, Jack. I got a neighbor that's got one of those flags posted right on his house.
Yeah, they believed him in his opening speech that said, when he said, I should say, that in, 50 years, the oceans will rise 1/8 of an inch. And they sucked it up. We don't have to worry about environmental issues. Don't worry about environmental issues. Worry about the nuclear threat. And it's incredible.
This is the same guy this is the same guy that told him to drink bleach to get rid of COVID. Shove a UV light up your ass.
That said, what was it? The Northern Army had more airplanes in the Civil War than the Confederates?
No, it was a Revolutionary War, wasn't it?
Revolutionary War.
I don't know. Oh, my God. He's a nut. So, yeah, winner number 3, the Cannon Township, Michigan Board. Winner number 4, I'm going to start instituting Jim Cornette's rule, which is I'm going to stop saying nice things about people because they always do something to where I have to retract saying nice things to them. Winner number 4, outgoing Democratic Michigan State Representative Cynthia Johnson of Detroit. We talked about her on this show about this would have been right at the beginning of 2021. Right after the storming of the Capitol. Right. Because she wanted to hold Republicans accountable for their actions, and she got chastised on the floor. The House Speaker removed committee assignments from her, and then she got death threats, which we played some of those on the air, calling her the N-word and saying that they would lynch her and everything. By the way, she is a woman of color. So why does she get douchebag of the week? Well, because she's supporting Kanye West and posting a link to that awful movie that's anti-Semitic, the Hebrews to Negroes movie. And saying that black people shouldn't criticize Kanye West because that's what white people want them to do. No, you got it wrong, lady. The problem is not black and white. The problem, and you haven't seen it yet, wake up, is the rich versus the poor. Because guess what? In spite of Kanye being black, he has the one ultimate privilege that supersedes it. It's the greatest privilege of all. I've said it on this show a million times. More so than race, more so than skin color, religion, gender, you name it. The one privilege that trumps everything else, wealth.
Cash. Yep.
Wealth. Period. It's like Carlin said. It's a big club and you ain't in it.
Yep. That's the only entitlement that Kanye, what's his new name now?
Ye
or something?
He's just calling himself Ye. Oh, and she was also supporting Kyrie Irving, the NBA star. Oh, black people shouldn't be criticizing it. Let me tell you something, lady. The guy that's talking to you right now, Cynthia, is the guy that got fired from his radio job for speaking out against Democratic Party leadership screwing Bernie Sanders over.
Yep, I was right there.
Yes, you were.
You know who she should call and join in her political career is Mr. Gibbs.
Yeah, maybe.
Mr. Gibbs. I mean, if you can't speak bad against blacks, for him being totally misogynist king, that's the calling card, I guess. He can say whatever he wants. Women aren't qualified to be in ruling positions.
Yep. So
that's about Kanye's craziness. So, yeah, she's right in the same league.
That's a very good point. It's one I would love to bring up with her, but I kicked her off my Facebook. So after she posted that.
They're losers.
I
mean, really.
They are. Let me just explain it in simple terms. You have the slaves in the house and you have the slaves in the field. Kanye is the slave in the house.
Yep.
Bottom line, period, end of story.
And so is Gibbs.
Yep. You think you think you're helping them out? No. You are helping them. You're helping them get away with all the money because they don't care about you. They look down on you because you're not rich. Jack, I really wish people would wake up and see it. So, to our 4 winners this week, we have this message for you.
Don't be a douchebag.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, we could do. Yeah,
good job.
I feel like we could do a whole 1-hour show, nothing but hammer time.
Why not?
Yeah. And speaking of time, we're out of time for this week. We'll be back next week. I'm Darren Gibson.
I'm Jack Prince.
Please support independent media, the First Amendment, and a woman's right to choose.
The stations that carry Southpaws do not necessarily share the opinions expressed on the show. Southpaws is protected by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and is copyrighted by Big D Entertainment. All rights reserved.